Hello, my dear children. Welcome back to the social science class. Let us continue with the political science lesson, our constitution. So far in this lesson, I've explained to you about the Constituent Assembly, the drafting committee and framing of the constitution, the preamble of the constitution, and the first seven salient features of a constitution. Let us continue with the other features of a constitution. The eighth one, directive principles of state policy. Directive principles of state policy has been incorporated or included in the fourth schedule of our constitution. Now, these principles have been adopted from the Irish constitution, that is from Ireland. They are the basis for the establishment of social and economic equality. They are the basic principles which are required for the administration of the country. Yet, we see that the government cannot be questioned by a court of justice if it does not implement them. So, when the government frames new laws, it should pay attention to these principles. So, it is already mentioned in the constitutions how the administration of the country has to be carried on. Therefore, when the government is framing new laws, it has to go through those principles. It should not do anything which can go against the constitution. That is, basically they want to establish social and economic inequality in our country. The next feature is independent and centralized judiciary system. So, children, our judiciary is independent and centralized. Judiciary means what? The courts. And they have the authority to give bold judgments in order to protect the rights of the people. Neither the legislature nor the executive, that is the first two organs, that is the parliament or even the ministers, have got the right to interfere with the working of the judiciary. And the Supreme Court is the highest court in our country, and all the other high courts and subordinate courts function under the Supreme Court of India. The next feature of our constitution is single citizenship. The constitution makes provision for single citizenship in order to curb narrow minded provincialism and promote nationalism. So, the citizens of this country are the citizens of India only. We don't have separate state citizenship, and all the people have got the same rights irrespective of their place of birth or residence. So, the legislature possesses the power to frame rules regarding this matter. So, we have only single citizenship, that is, citizen of the country, no separate state citizenship. The next one is the adult franchise. The constitution provides for adult franchise. The meaning is the citizens above 18 years of age may exercise their right to vote. Okay, this symbolizes that the sovereign absolute power in the country is in the hands of the people, that is, the citizens of the country. The next one, bicameral legislature. The central legislature is called the parliament. As I already told you, the parliament consists of two houses. Which are they? The Lok Sabha, that is the lower house, and the Rajya Sabha, that is the upper house. The last salient feature of our constitution is party system. You know, children, we have many party system in our country which is called as multi-party system. Political parties, they are like the pillars of a democracy. So after the elections, whichever party wins with the majority of votes, they become the ruling party, whereas the rest will be in the opposition parties. Now next let us study about fundamental rights and duties. Fundamental rights provide the social and the political atmosphere that is necessary for the development of the personality of the citizens of the country. So, these rights are required for a person in order to lead a civilized life in the society. They are even essential for the success of a democracy. So, there were 7 fundamental rights mentioned in the third part of our Constitution. However, after the 44th Amendment, the right to property has been abolished. Hence, there are 6 fundamental rights at present. So, which are the 6 fundamental rights? They are right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, and right to constitutional remedies. Now let us study one by one. Right to equality. So children, this right is very essential for the success of a democratic form of government. Under this, all the citizens are equal socially and economically before the law. All the people should get equal protection of the law without any discrimination on the basis of caste, religion, gender, or the place of birth. No citizen should be subjected to any restrictions also with regard to make use or to access shops, public restaurants, hotels, places of public entertainment, or public places of worship. So, under this right, untouchability is an offense. I have explained to you, children, in the sociology chapter how the untouchables were treated in a country. So, this right has enabled every citizen to get an equal opportunity to join government service. The second one is the right to freedom. This is one of the most important fundamental rights. So, under this right, one has the right to express his own opinion, to conduct meetings without arms, to establish organizations, to live anywhere in India, and to follow any profession and move around the country. So, there is no restrictions here. It is a protective right also, and even no one can be arrested without proper reason. No state law can snatch the life and the freedom of a citizen. So, the Constitution has mentioned such rights in the Constitution so that in future the citizens can live freely. The third one, right against exploitation. The aim of this right is to prevent exploitation of children, women, the poor, and the weak. Begging, Devadasi system, practice of sati, immoral activities, and forced labor, which has been practiced in our country earlier, all this has been prohibited. And it is mentioned where? Yes, in the Constitution. Employment of children under 14 years of age in dangerous occupations like mining or industries and all is a punishable offense. They can be punished under law. The next one is the right to freedom of religion. So, since India is a secular country, no religion has been given the status of a national religion. We have a national language, national flag, national anthem, national bird, national animal, etc. But we don't have the national religion. It is up to the citizens. They can accept any religion that they want, that is according to their conscience. They can practice it as well as propagate it. No one can be forced to pay taxes for the management of the religious institutions. Use of religious places for political and for other activities has been prohibited in the country. The next one, cultural and educational rights. All the citizens of the country have their own language, script, and culture, and it is the duty of the state to protect them. So, this right protects the interests of the religious and the linguistic minorities. No one can be denied admission in a government or an aided institution or institutions run by minorities. So, people have got the right to practice their own culture and to get education of their own choice. The last fundamental right is the right to constitutional remedies. So, children, the Constitution has not only given fundamental rights to the citizens of our country but also guaranteed them under Article 32. Whenever the rights are violated, either by a person or by the government, it could be central or the state, then the citizens may appeal directly to the Supreme Court for their protection. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has called this right the heart and soul of the Constitution. If any individual or the government at the center and state appear to violate a person's right, he has the right to approach the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court is empowered to enforce the fundamental rights. Hence, it is called the protector of the fundamental rights. Even the high courts have the power to pass the following writs under Article 226. So, what are some of the writs that the high courts have got or the courts have got to pass? Let us learn one by one. So, let us first understand what is a writ. Anything that is issued under an authority. It could be a letter of law issued by the court under its seal to an official to act or to do something. It is a formal written order. Habeas corpus. So, the order passed by the Supreme Court or the High Court to produce a person within specified time frame is called habeas corpus. So, this protects the individual right of a person. So, this order can be given by the Supreme Court and the High Court, that is to produce a person within that time. Secondly, mandamus. So, when the legislature, executive, or any other subordinate institutions fail to perform their duties or their works, the Supreme Court or the High Court orders them to perform these works. So, this order only is called as mandamus, but the order cannot be passed against private individual, governor, or the president. Thirdly, prohibition. When a subordinate court passes a judgment beyond its jurisdiction, or the judgment is against the sense of natural justice, the High Court pass order against such judgments. The order is called as prohibition. So, this can be passed against the lower court by the higher court. The next one, certiorari. So, when the subordinate court passes judgments beyond their jurisdiction or against the sense of natural justice, the High Court orders the submission of the records. All the records related to that particular case should be submitted to the High Court. Okay, so they will check and see about that judgment. So, this order only is called as certiorari. The last one is called co-warrant. So the order directing the right person to occupy the right public office is called as co-warrant. So the order is passed against the persons who hold public offices illegally, okay, by cheating and through bribery and all that, no. So this order is passed on such persons by the high courts. Next, we learn about what is this public interest litigations. This can be filed in the courts in order to protect the social rights which are denied to the citizens and to protect public interest. Public interest litigations can be filed for the purpose of protecting the legal rights of the citizens that are essential to protect their life and also to protect the environment from being polluted. So these public interest litigations, it can be filed by the individuals as well as the social institutions. In recent years, we see that the courts on their own are filing such public interest litigations when a situation arises. So children, in today's class, I've explained to you about the remaining features of the Constitution and about the 6 fundamental rights. Hope you have understood, children. Go through the points. Thank you. Take care.